We're going to move to our next segment. Nick Loeb is joining us here in studio. Nick is the co-writer and co-director of the upcoming movie Roe v. Wade. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you so much for having me.
And also joining us via Skype is Dr. Jen Conti. Welcome, Dr. Conti.
Hi, nice to be here. And I wanted to say thank you for having me on today, because when we talk about abortion and reproductive rights, we often hear about it through the lens of hypotheticals. It's not often that you get to hear from and interact with an abortion provider. So I applaud you for having an actual expert in the field on.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. And so we're going to play a quick trailer from Nick's film, and then we're going to kick off the conversation.
Roe v. Wade, in the grand scheme of things, is not that important.
I understand the importance that people attach to the Roe v. Wade decision.
Real history of the 1973 Roe v. Wade abortion decision.
The Senate has just confirmed.
Brett Kavanaugh is officially confirmed.
That will flip the decision.
We have been in our second civil war for over 50 years now.
A bunch of disorganized men are going to rid this country of abortion restriction.
Doctors must protect life from the point of conception.
Are you sure you want to do this?
You're a liar. You did this. You led me down this path. You didn't want them.
You seen the post this morning?
I saw it.
Idiot, there's a leak.
They've got Hollywood on their side.
This is a conspiracy.
Today, my mommy killed me.
Well, Nick, it looks like a very, very powerful movie. Now, you are pro-life personally.
I am.
So what inspired you to create this movie?
Well, it's, I think everybody in America has heard of Roe v. Wade. Hopefully most understand that that was the decision that led to legalize abortion in America. But I don't think anyone understood of how the case got there and then how it was decided. And so after reading over 40 books, the court transcripts, it ended up sort of unraveling as a JFK conspiracy Oliver Stone movie. So I thought it was extremely interesting, and I think America it's the most famous case in American history, and I think Americans should understand how it got there and why it became law.
So what's the key takeaway from the movie?
It's the truth. I mean, the key takeaway, I think, is we lay out both sides, how the pro-choicers fought to get their agenda passed, how the pro-lifers tried to fight to stop it, and then what the justices did. I mean, I think, it ended up being bad law. I think every single legal scholar, even on the left, will tell you it was the worst decision in Supreme Court history. I mean, even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who agrees with the result, doesn't agree with how we got to that result.
And what's the shooting? I mean, that was very, very
Yeah, I
traumatizing.
noticed
The
that too.
explosion, the shooting,
Did
like
people die actually
that's
in the making of this decision?
So interesting. In the movie, there's the lawyer for Jane Roe, Norm McCorvey, who sort of orchestrated Planned Parenthood finding her to bring her to the Supreme Court and sort of put it all together and got her to lie, manipulate her, was assassinated right after the case. And the person who prosecuted his assassin was Henry Wade.
Wow.
Okay.
And then the
Hence the Oliver Stone.
What's the explosion?
So we take both sides. When we open the movie and show, the movie really starts in the 80s and the 90s with an explosion of an abortion clinic, showing that this is the war. The pro-lifers are attacking abortion clinics, and it's hypocritical of their movement.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think violence in any form, whether, abortion doctors have been murdered and assaulted, is completely horrible, and it should be. So I'm glad that you're showing both sides. But Doctor, I want to bring you into the conversation because one of the headlines that's in the news right now is this law that was just signed here in New York that basically allows people who are not doctors. I thought it was interesting that you talked about your credentialing. I'm pro-life. And to me, this law seems like it could really harm a lot of women to allow non-doctors to perform these procedures.
So just, you're talking about the Reproductive Health Act, and you're right. I think it's absolutely, well, in my view, fantastic news because it does a number of things for the women of New York. One of the things you mentioned was that it allows providers who are not doctors to also provide abortions. We've seen through really good research, actually out of California, where I'm based, that when you allow mid-level providers, nurse practitioners, midwives to also engage in this care, it is equally as safe. So it's not everyone to the plate. It's people who are credentialed and who have the expertise to do it. The other thing that it does, and the part that I am most excited about, is that it allows abortion in the exact situation where a woman may be carrying a pregnancy where she has a serious medical condition, where continuing the pregnancy puts her life at risk, or if she's carrying a pregnancy with a fetus that has lethal anomalies. Both of those situations are incredibly, incredibly rare, and decisions that need to really happen in the exam room without politicians involved. So I applaud New York, I applaud Governor Cuomo for taking this step to protect women.
So I strongly disagree with the law. I think it's really dangerous and harmful to children. I think the taking of innocent life is terrible for society. But I understand it's the law of the land, right? No, I think I guess one question.
Can't settle here.
Right. No, I guess. But one of the opponents to the law, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, Doctor. She said she's a state lawmaker. We've had her on Bold before. She talked about the fact that this law also decriminalizes abortion, so takes it out of the criminal code. And she said this could result in, for example, if a woman is assaulted and her child is killed by the assaulter, there would be no ramification or prosecution of this assaulter who killed her unborn child. Doesn't that bother you?
Well, what I can say, again, bringing it back to the fact that I'm a physician, I can't speak as a legal expert, but what I can say is that almost every day I see women who come into the clinic who need abortion care, who come to me telling their stories about what uniquely brings them to that point in their life. And, as a doctor, as an abortion provider, it is not my decision to decide what's best for this person's life or this person's life. I'm there as a physician to help provide compassionate care to that person when she needs it. And honestly, it continually shocks me that people think it is okay for me to be the person who judges what's right for that person's life.
I have a question for Nick. You're a filmmaker, you're a private citizen, you're a person in the world. Why do you, and you're pro-life, so why do you feel that you're able to tell a woman sort of what she can do with her reproductive health and what decisions she can?
I can't tell a woman what to do with her reproductive health.
Yeah.
But we have a U.S. Constitution that protects life, and so what about the compassion?
It's not.
She mentions compassion. What about the compassion for the child inside her body? What about that right?
It's disingenuous for you to say life like it's just an established fact that this is a living, breathing thing. When it's clearly
it is living.
It's up for it's not living. A piece of an embryo is not alive.
I'm sorry. In New York today, you can kill a child at 8 months. So you think that's not living?
It's the line between when a life.
And you don't need the law.
Life.
You don't need the law in New York to protect what she wants to protect.
It's clearly not as settled as you both are saying.
It is completely settled.
I think
every side. It's interesting. The left always wants to compare and use science in their argument, right? So now we have science on our side, and you don't want to use it anymore.
So when does science say life begins?
At conception. Every scientist in the world says life begins at conception.
I mean, you seem like a nice person.
Embryonic stages. It's a it's not garbage. It's DNA.
Okay, let's
it's junk. What is it? A giraffe?
It's not true.
Not a human DNA.
Okay. I want to have a productive conversation, and Doctor, you wanted to jump in.
Absolutely. I just want to say, I can feel compassion for where Nick's coming from. I can feel compassion for people who may feel conflicted about this. I actually used to identify as anti-choice, and it wasn't really until I took a bigger look at this decision. I met several people going through this who needed this kind of care. I decided to study biology in college. I went and got a medical degree. I then got a degree in journalism so I could understand how these issues were coming across in the media, if they were coming across accurately. I got a degree in epidemiology so I could understand which science to believe and which not to believe. And what I can say from that is that my expertise tells me that at the end of the day, it's not a black and white issue. I know that Nick and I know that a lot of people who identify as anti-abortion want to make it very black and white. It would be very convenient for this discussion to make this an issue that you could just say, this is right, this is wrong. But the reality is there's a lot of gray area, and that it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about the woman going through it.
It's about the baby inside the womb.
I think
as well.
that
We all leave out.
One thing that you heard over and over from Democrats who were pushing to expand abortion was to say that, well, we should just make it safe, legal, and rare. That was Hillary Clinton's catchphrase.
What's wrong with that?
We have in this country like 600,000 abortions every year. And that's millions and millions of abortions. That's not rare. And so to have a law that would expand it even more. And doctor, the case that you mentioned, the extreme cases of a mother's life in peril, those are fairly extreme. I think what's happening is it's routine, that the destruction of human life is so routine. And to look at the history, you mentioned understanding the history, that Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, she was a racist eugenicist. She wanted to purify the human race. She didn't like African Americans. So that's the history, the true history of abortion in America.
Let's go back to safe, legal, and rare. Nick, would you support comprehensive sex education in schools so there's fewer unintended pregnancies?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Would you, support access to birth control as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
So I come from
a lot of the biggest people against abortion are also the people.
Yeah, but you were talking about me, not everybody else. Okay?
But I'm talking about your side now.
Right, no, yeah, but we're talking about me, not my side.
Okay.
So let's discuss. Yeah, but I'm curious. You don't believe that life begins at conception. So when does human life exist?
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question.
When there's a heartbeat?
And neither do you.
We can't answer this
when there's a
question.
heartbeat.
And we actually got to move on.
I'm not even
a human heartbeat.
That's a ridiculous
Guys,
question.
we got to
I
move
can't
on.
answer.
We can't answer this right now in terms of an agreement.
That's not a real question.
I think we did find an area of an agreement of these guys that sex education and contraception.
I would be
I think we can all agree on that.
I think the pro-choice people would be a lot more open to abortion restrictions if the pro-life people were more open to sex education and access to birth control.
You got to take personal responsibility. You can't say one for the other. That's a ridiculous argument.
You'll see, that is not a ridiculous argument, sir. But that's fine. Okay.
All right. We're going to leave it right there, guys. Keep the conversation going. I think this is an important dialogue. Thank you, doctor, for joining us as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
I just want to say thank you again for having me on. And again, just compassion is my end message here. And that when we judge and we infer that other people's decisions are wrong, we really disrespect those women. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you both for joining us.
All right. So a lot happened this week. First, President Trump announced